So this session today, obviously, our company, Proteus, our product Engage extensively and heavily, all those big words, leveraged obviously for onboarding and also complex sales and CS. But today we're going to kind of be talking a little bit of a kind of a blended strategy, especially if the product or service you're offering is extremely complex or has a pretty extensive sales cycle, so larger, more complex environments. And I'll kind of break that down more, where the last 25%, yes, I'm saying this, the sale actually involves pretty extensive onboarding resources to help with alignment. And I don't want to let the cat out of the hat, but and maybe some of you are already doing this, but we have seen this work extremely well, especially in high risk, more complicated type of ecosystems, and we'll kind of walk through that here um, a little bit today. So let's get started, and I'll start to showcase kind of the important pieces of that. Again, Joey Connect, senior leader with Proteus, been with the enterprise north of 20 years, extensive experience in these areas of complex sales, handoffs. I'll get into that more. But ultimately, most of what I'm sharing here today clearly are product supports, but a lot of this is more just experience from the battlefields and areas of opportunity and measurement and just overall success. And so I always like to kind of frame the conversations. Obviously, this one might be a little strong. I'm a sales guy too at heart, so everybody's making the win. But the point being is for consideration for a tremendous amount of organizations is really where the rubber starts to hit the road. So if you're in sales, you kind of know where I'm going. If you're not, let me kind of just give it the complete abstract. In sales, obviously nowadays a ton of online research. Many times the top three are selected just by virtual sales. Then it gets into actual on selling and consulting. As that progresses through the sales cycle, a ton of stakeholders start coming in. On the average enterprise deal or mid enterprise deal, you're going to have anywhere from 6 to 10 folks on that deal, meeting buyers and stakeholders. And then kind of combining all that, the last 25% of the sale is really where the rubber starts to hit the road, because you've cleared enough hurdles during the sales process that it's now getting pretty intimate with the client, meaning you're needing to share a lot of details and specifications and all of this stuff prior to the actual contract being signed, right? And that's just the real world. A ton of this is all done before the contract is typically signed. So as that process starts to happen, there's just a lot of people and a lot of trust that has to be kind of garnered during that sales process. And what I'm sharing with you here is obviously where a lot of this comes together for organizations, where onboarding leaders themselves are involved to help get it across the line. Also transferring of a tremendous amount of knowledge, trust, relationships, etc., are all done at this point. And that's very critical for a lot of modern companies or services that are being sold again to mid cap or enterprise, right? Makes sense, everybody? Um, Companies, quite frankly, are scared as hell to onboard new stuff. Like I always joke with people, like nobody's excited to onboard a new tool. Like, and I don't mean that in a mean way, right? But I mean just think like your own company where you work, not what you sell or you onboard. Like, is anybody geeked up about deploying a new product or service? No, no one is. And it's really high risk. It's high pressure. So everybody's scared. I've done many presentations on the perception of all sides. And you got to remember that it's very dangerous, especially as, the dollar amounts go more north, right? And so anything you can do to mitigate that risk, build that trust. Obviously, I'm foreshadowing here a little bit, but everybody kind of knows what I'm talking about there. So let's unpack it a little bit. A couple of things. One, why we do see an upward northern, whatever we want to call it, push where onboarding and some of your team, not all of your team, is getting a little bit more involved in that sales process, is because of the number of people and the complexity of deals. And so we're just seeing, because again, 6 to 10 on the buyer side, and that's I'm calling that's kind of at the min. We have a lot of clients that have, like, 25 plus people involved. And then same thing on your side, your company, you have silos and other people internally. So you're going to have at least 5 to 8 kind of floating in there. So just naturally, we have a very complex world of a lot of people, a lot of things. Email is not an onboarding solution or a framework for communication and collaboration. So how do you herd all of these cats kind of to obviously drive this interaction, which again was the point of it going a little bit more north, because of so much risk and danger going on. Um, as you remember, as you probably are aware, kind of the full life cycle, obviously for many groups, it starts with the sales handoff. What we're basically talking about here is this happening actually still doing the sales process, so it's more seamless for you. Not everybody does it this way, right? There's this is also another one, the new client readiness score to onboard. We work with a lot of clients here. This component, this tool, and this basically process can also be done during the last part of the sales process, which is in essence teeing the company up, your new client up for success by prepping them for onboarding while the sale process is still going. You say, Joel, why would we care about that? Well, if it's revenue, time to value means a lot to all of you here, and that can expedite your TTV and, most importantly, client satisfaction and scale. So when we look at this kind of process here, what we're talking about today, it's kind of elements of these two pieces of the full sales cycle. I guess it's the first two. It looks like the mouse isn't kind of showing, but I'm talking about the first two in the full cycle. And so this is really important, because again, it allows you to hit the ground running, which is for TTV the best thing ever for an onboarding specialist or a leader, because this allows you, one, to obviously generate value and revenue correctly. Probably for most of you, the biggest red dot item you're working against in more complicated environments is resource management and making sure that your top A resources are available and meeting the needs of your customers. So resourcing is a big challenge that this process can also help with. So it's de-risking, optimizing resources, and really just driving overall account success there. Okay, kind of makes sense, everybody. Again, a lot of times I'd like to lay out the building blocks so you can kind of, in your mind, kind of understand kind of where this fits into the very complex puzzle of onboarding. And um, I don't want to, I could talk for hours on this stuff, but one of the sidebar pro tips, whatever I want to call these things, just like it works. And so, especially when you're in the sales process with the client and it isn't fully across the line yet, you're really hearing where their greatest bleeding points are and where they're trying to create opportunity and ROI fast. That allows you to better cater your onboarding experience so that those modules, elements, services, whatever, are kind of prioritized to show them how you could get to value so much faster. Again, it's the little devil in the details. It's shifting some of your onboarding process, obviously, to adapt to the immediate client needs, which I'm assuming you're planning on anyway, right? Because ultimately, the proof is in the performance, client satisfaction, TTV, those types of things. All right, I beat this kind of down. So okay, so what do we do now? Well, so a lot of things have kind of changed. Obviously, I've done tons of presentations of this, but traditional onboarding was kind of considered as just a thing that has to happen to the client. I forgot. I'd be remorsed if I don't say this. When I say the word onboarding and reuse onboarding here, I'm really talking about two different things. Onboarding to us is comprised of configuration and adoption. Many times organizations kind of are heavier talking about, like, oh, we got it all configured. So it's live for the client. Live means nothing to us. Live is probably about halfway. And so that's a misnomer, especially in some SaaS companies. Service companies, they're a little bit more wrapped around or attuned to that, but SaaS companies frequently measure onboarding by configuration instead of actual user adoption. Um, and so we always are thinking combined and just for nomenclature. Um, and it's really about obviously focusing on, instead of just again traditional onboarding just being something that is set up, we are seeing this a lot moving north of that, and a true partnership to drive that value. Um, Everybody wants ROI. Everybody wants everything fast to work and to be driving return on that. And you're being judged quite a bit. Everybody knows that. Um, and that quote underneath is really true. Like we really believe in executing great processes and handling your onboarding successfully. Not only obviously helps drive current success of the project, but also quite a bit of reoccurring revenue and net new revenue from the things you've defined during that, right? So B2B, it's evolved a lot. For many clients now, onboarding is their differentiator, right? Literally. In a lot of congested areas, meaning congested product lines or high competitor landscape, those types of things. Literally, just the onboarding experience of getting people up successfully, cleanly, and enjoyably, and adopting rapidly and seeing that ROI can box a lot of your competitors out. So it's just evolving a lot. So when I say the last 25% of the sale, what do we really mean? And quite frankly, it's we say 25. Sometimes I say 30. Usually I say 25 or 30. But the point is, joking around, it's whatever percent you want it to be. Everybody's product or service or offering is different. You don't want to waste resources. So it has to be deep enough in the sales process that there's high commitment and validation and business case and da 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 da, so that your resources aren't wasted. Are you going to put your entire team on this? Hell no. So this is an area of opportunity for certain members of your onboarding or implementation team to be elevated to be senior leader or whatever, who help with some of these specific onboardings that require, and for you to manage your team's risk, putting them on it. So it's a great honor to be a part of this team, and it allows you to obviously um, gather that relationship and scale that. But you can see here, I'm not going to read everything for you. It's again, a lot of the times the implementation team during onboarding, they know kind of where the failure points are a lot. So being able to bring that a little bit higher in the sales process to navigate the complexities of your sale and making sure that you truly are teeing the client up and any questions can be answered at that point in time. Um, I'll be candid also, we have seen not all companies, and today's presentation is this, but it kind of is correlated a little bit, especially in top-down sales environments. So if your company is selling like top-down leadership, but then when onboarding steps in, it's a completely different team because the users of the solution sold are completely different. I think people are shaking their heads and understanding here, right? So you have leadership that signed the contract, line that is dotted. The onboarding team hops in, and now it's going to be the users of it. We have seen companies get into challenges there because when onboarding begins, it's in essence you're reselling again. So you're selling to the now different users than the original team you were selling to. You can see how that can create quite a bit of strife and challenges and missed expectations and all the things you don't want have happening happens. And so in those environments, that's why they start to bring in not only the onboarding person, but then they start looping in some of the users still during the sales process. I know this is why sales cost so much during the modern business because of all the people involved. So I'm just putting that out there. It's a it's a cousin to this challenge, not a brother or a sister, but a cousin, and we do see it happening, and so it's just something to be aware of, where onboarding is kind of teed up for failure because it was sold to the leadership, and now when you kick off onboarding, the actual team is like, why are we even buying this? What is this service? What's the value? No one talked to us. This isn't even really our problem. Some of you are probably chuckling, right? One of those kickoff meetings that gets real spicy right out the gate. Whoo, look out. Got to turn that frown upside down. It's going to be a long week, right? And so I just bring that up. I digress, but if many of you are second time shoppers here and know come and listen to a lot of these, I get off track just because I'm just trying to protect the house. Okay. So we kind of alluded to this a little bit. So where the challenge kind of comes, just, more money, more problems. If you're Biggie Smalls, just a lot of people, just all sorts of things going on. And so the last part of complex sales and why onboarding typically is involved is teeing up a lot of the technical decisions or other things. You might even have sales engineers if your enterprise is big enough that you actually have sales engineers. Those sales engineers then either play two roles, either on your onboarding team or they're your liaison also there. And as I said, it's really a people problem and a trust problem, that really are a lot of the big issues why this makes it a lot smoother instead of an abrupt, wicked handoff, and especially for longer sales cycles, right? Okay, so key stakeholders, just as you're doing the math on your side, you're like, is this really true? Yeah, it is. Just start penciling out how many people you have involved during the sales process. Again, if you're selling a $5,000 a year solution, this is not your problem. Um, we're talking about more complex or more bespoke services or larger deals north of, I don't know. It used to be like north of 1 million. Now it's like north of 50,000 to be. It's ridiculous. Pardon me. It's a little shocking how many people are involved on a $50,000 transaction nowadays. You would have thought we were doing an ERP of Oracle with how many people sometimes have to. I digress. You digress. If you were saying it yourself, it's just there's just a lot of people, and then there's legal and everybody else, procurement and I mean the numbers just get crazy. And so yeah, long story short, building that trust and relationship is critical on this, and that's why we're seeing it move north. The hidden role of your onboarding team, not that like they're secret shoppers or something of that nature. Secret shoppers, supermarket sweep, one of the best shows ever. Um, but validated the sales promises. I'll let you digest that. It's nobody on this call, but we have had circumstances where sometimes sales has made inferences or kind of got the customer believing that um, your product that is built for plumbing operations to be effective in billing and customer support, that also sometimes that product launches rockets. So it's just that other add-on feature that sometimes kind of takes people by surprise. Um, but again, the intent is surfacing challenges and opportunities as fast as humanly possible to mitigate the deal. Now, with that said, this philosophy and approach is very, very successful. But sometimes sales isn't as too keen to have other people in the sales process, especially if you're bringing up maybe things that could change the temperament of the call, or you know where I'm getting at there. So you do have to be careful. But ultimately, what it's about is making the client successful. And also, if you don't do it, they're going to churn out right away anyway, and the organization's going to lose money overall. So it's not about sales, it's not about CS, it's not about onboarding. It's about the customer and teeing the customer up for success. And I think many of you, it's probably not your first rodeo, but ultimately, when you're transparent with clients and you're teeing them up for success and you're honest, the sooner you can do that, it's easier to maintain that. Like you're going to have challenges. It's just a real life, but being open and transparent about it and then working together to find the right solution is critical for success. In our solution, that's a lot of mutual plans, a lot of open communication, again, centralizing everybody and doing things to really create that visibility. And so people just don't like to be snookered or surprised, if that's a better way of saying that, right? And so ultimately, trust, a consultative relationship, one problem, three solutions, here's how we can do it. Ultimately, it works out in the end better for everybody because eventually, if there's something there that's not right, it's going to come out, and it's going to come out at the worst moment, of course, during onboarding and all sorts of challenges there, right? I think that makes sense to everybody. And again, teeing your team up for success. Couple of things is again, we talk about implementation and then adoption in your firm. Sometimes in companies, those are different people. So if you lead onboarding, do you lead both sides of it, the onboarding and implementation? Sorry. Now I'm do you lead long week, like I said. Do you lead the implementation and the adoption? If it is, then that trusted resource being earlier in the sales process clearly helps build a lot more trust and relationship because Tiffany or Tommy is going to follow us all the way through. How awesome does that feel if you're the new client, right? So there's a lot of positive things in that relationship. And that's why we say adoption begins in sales, is that's how early you can inject this into the process to really streamline and manage risk. At the end of the day, this is all managing risk. Now you got to maybe structure it a little correctly within your team. But if you look at a lot of your core issues with onboarding, a lot of the times it's around communication, collaboration, and trust development of the individuals involved. And so it really is. And then, of course, we like to think a lot of it as mutual plans and doing things of that nature and setting expectations and accountability correctly. And so it just allows this all to be not a weird, we sold you, now we're going to do a random kickoff call. And basically, you, the client, are restating everything again and are frustrated, et cetera, et cetera. You've all been there. And so it just works. I'm not saying like that's, it just works. Um, okay. Um, kind of, I was just stating this. It really comes down to the handoff problem that no one wants to talk about. It's kind of like the thing everybody ignores, but everybody says they do really well. Um, and I'm not projecting. It's just if you rando ask people, how do you guys handle your handoffs? Or like, are they good? Yeah, oh yeah, they're great. Yeah. We got it all in Salesforce. We're good to go. Da 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 da. You know. And then if you ask their new customers, how did you enjoy the handoff? And they say it was pretty abrupt. We had to restate everything again. Didn't feel like they knew what our problems were. Sound familiar to anybody? So again, this is kind of the 800-pound gorilla in the room that again nobody wants to talk about. But yeah, just a lot of things tied up into this. And again, I've covered some of the scope creep, some of the product feature challenges, integrations. Again, everything that can be solved earlier in that process mitigates the risk of the handoff and the onboarding itself, right? I mean, it just comes down to that. What does a strong one look like? Obviously, the opposite of a bad one. And so again, in these use cases, it's we like to lead, and many of our clients who are successful like to lead with relationship and a consultative based model so that when they're injected into the relationship, it's not here's a bunch of tasks, go do this. It's more understanding their need, which has been clearly communicated. Obviously, they're still in the sales process, validating that need, validating your solution or service against that, and aligning things, obviously, to make it the smoothest exit ramp you could have from sales ever and that exit ramp goes right into implementation. Obviously, you might have to do some kickoffs clearly if there's more people, but you get my point. And it makes it very, very seamless as you carry through that. So it's, yeah, I was going to say another joke, but no, I'll park it. But ultimately, it's a framework to do that in place, mostly led by consultative minded. And that's the key because clients don't know what they don't know. They've hired you to solve some big problems for them, and they're needing you to help guide them to success and what that might look like, you know what I mean, downstream. So, again, nothing rocket science here, but I always like to say 2 to 3 degrees on a compass is the difference between the ship making it to shore and getting fuel or dying in the ocean, right? And it's the same thing. It's a combination of a lot of little things in onboarding, the intricacies of these processes, doing it a little bit earlier, making the client feel bespoke and trusted, confirming the trust with them, confirming the plans, and then getting into the actual onboarding process, right? So, yeah. Business impact, I think we kind of led with this, but it's always more money and more happiness. I mean, at the end of the day, faster time to value, aligned expectations, less friction, and all. I don't want to say the good things, but ultimately it is. Now, when you really look at the incremental cost to your organization, I'm sure you're tracking TTV already and already have metrics on your client hours. If not, I can include with this just kind of some resource planning elements that we do for a ton of our clients. But ultimately, measuring how much the true cost of this process is very cost effective for the ROI, right? It's not about doing 900 meetings. It's about teeing it up for success. Again, not your whole team, certain members of your team for success. So I encourage you to think about it. At minimum, test and validate the concept. Test and validate the concept with like a strong VP you have or a strong consultative seller, and experiment with these because I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised, um, because of the just seamless feel of it and relationship development that can happen to foster trust. So, excuse me, of course, make you money, but just better in general. Proven frameworks. I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but obviously earlier in the presentation, I showed the entire life cycle. A lot of pieces to all of that. We recommend obviously doing all of that because each piece represents about 15% of the process in general, and you need everything interconnected. Mutual success planning frameworks. I don't care what flavor of mutual planning you like. We do a ton of it. We have infrastructure to manage it all, but ultimately trust and relationship, and then building out a highly accountable ecosystem. Readiness and risk scoring, talked about that also. This allows your team to build trust on that client. Really well executed readiness and risk scoring of a new client also unlocks new revenue opportunities also for cross selling. Just throw that into your hat. Like it's a whole nother splinter of this of high value, but staying focused here. Um, Ultimately, that's that's how these are proven ways basically of doing everything I'm talking about. I'll share out a couple of resources, but yeah, very again, keep it simple, stupid. KISS theory, it really is. It's just execution of it, um, is really the difference makers. And the tools are there, like our product, and of course philosophies like we're talking about. And then metrics that matter. At the end of the day, you will be judged. You'll be judged by the client, and you'll be judged by your leadership on kind of all of the important pieces here of time to value, TTV, value. Please use the V. Please do something with a V. Don't say live or something like that because that's not value. It's value to the client. The client has to see value, which are things that should have been defined during the sales process for ROI and value creation to the customer. If not, that's why you're having obviously an onboarder involved with that process to make sure the clear expectations are there. So you don't get into a, we're going to deploy with you and save you guys 50% within the first 3 months. I'm sorry. Like, no, that's not true. Not going to happen. In fact, it's going to cost 20% more for the first 3 months. And then we'll start saving at a rate of about 5% per month. I'm making all of that up, right? But we have clients like managing the expectations correctly, because when they're managed correctly, people are excited about them, not when they're rando. So again, nothing new here, but this is how you can confirm that the process is adding value and success to the teams downstream. Okay. Another thing some partners want me to do is, this concept has some intricacies along with some of the other ones that I have listed out here. I open this up on the webinars and done it for tons of companies, is just brainstorming with your own team how to connect these processes for the full life cycle. And if you truly are interested in injecting, um, you know, onboarding into the tip of the spear or the last 25%, more than welcome to do a presentation with your team. Of course, I'll coordinate with you on what you want to cover and everything, but it really helps understand how each piece is mission critical to the overall success of the onboarding and of course of all your processes, etc. Right? This will be in the deck. You can sign up and yeah, it will just be with me, and you tell me, hey Joe, I'm interested in leveraging like pre-mortems. Like a lot of clients want to do pre-mortems, right? Which is predicting failure. Sometimes those are used in the actual end of the sales process, so that there's areas of opportunity around it, right? So you get it. Other things, um, of course, for this presentation, obviously all of this stuff will be going out, but I encourage everybody to check out all of our other webinars and other insights that we have on the process. I got not chuckling, but so I encourage you to do that. I'll share a couple with the resources from this meeting, and I appreciate everybody's time today. Thanks.